Hello there, and welcome to my beginner's guide for settlement survival. I'm Icon, and in this video I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to stay alive and be successful in this game. I'm going to go over the gameplay mechanics, the challenges, and everything you need to do to get the ball rolling here. So we start out at the main menu where you're seeing I'm just doing a completely standardized run here. If you find the game too challenging, go for a lower difficulty or disable the disasters. Especially the disasters are something, if you like to be forced to restart from time to time to put your knowledge up to a new test, leave the disasters on. If you prefer to just build it up without being bothered by catastrophes that force you to redo a lot of things, turn them off. I personally recommend to turn them off for beginners, but you know, I'm personally, I like challenges and I get bored real quickly if I don't have these things that force me to restart, so I wanted to showcase it here. Let's get started. Now, before anything else, this is an early access version of this game, and therefore there are incompletenesses, there are bugs, and there are balance issues, but I'm pretty sure most, if not all of these issues will be ironed out before the full release. I just wanted to mention it before any false impression could arise. Now, here we now get to select where we're going to start out. A couple of factors that are important. These green nodes are bonuses for your settlement. All of them are good. It's either forestry and fields and forestry, animal yields, chances for animal cubs. It's all real good stuff. The more of these green nodes you can get, the better. Of course, if you grow more experience, you will notice that some things sometimes are more desirable than others, but if you're really just new to the game, just pick as many as possible, and you won't do anything wrong with that. The second parameter that I like to showcase are these gray and dark gray rock formations. That's iron and stone that you can just pick up from the ground. Starting in the vicinity of many of those gives you the ability to have a lot of these materials to work with, because they are really important building and crafting materials that must be later on extracted more painfully. Once these deposits are gone, the further extraction of these materials is more strainful. That's that. And the third parameter is stay not too far away from the water, because water gives you access to trade, and trade is very powerful in this game. So judging from what I'm seeing here, this spot looks nice. We got a lot of opportunities here. We got lots of stones and such, and there's a river right next to us. So let's left click there and let's get started. At the beginning of the game, you start out with a couple of people. Up here you see how many. It's 14 adults, 7 children, and there's students in between if you have education, that is. So let's go quickly over the user interface. Over here you see a ledger with your food and all the other materials that are present in your possession. Really important, really useful. Get used to it. It's pretty it's a really nice thing. You can also configure it quite neatly. Like, you can tell it which kind of materials should be displayed in this number, so you can tell it to just, for example, count timber and such. Really good features. Second feature that's worth showcasing, the map hidden behind the M button, or this one. So if you like a mini map, I do most of the time, here's your way to go. Also, there's the map seed if you want to have the same map here to play along. The third thing are the statistics, but we're going to get there later, because these things will be much more interesting once we have built a couple of things. At the beginning of the game, you have a couple of jobs to secure the survival for your people, because you start out with only the material and the working hands. If you do your job poorly, people will die. So the most important things early on are housing, of course, getting your people fed, and keeping your people warm. And then you need to keep a couple of other things running, but one thing at a time. So to build anything, you'll see down here we have these buttons with the building icons. The game categorizes into different shelves. So here's housing, here's food, storage, and so on and so forth. Pretty self-explanatory. We're going to cover most of them in the course of the video. So first on, we're going to build some houses. Every house provides space for a family of 4 people. As you see here, we're 21 people, so we're going to need definitely at least 6 houses. 6 houses provide room for 24 people, so should be working. It could be that we're going to need even a 7th house because, you know, there's a... No, it's not going to could be, it's definitely going to be because, you know, 2 adults make 1 household. We got 14, so 7 people. With the housing, it's quite important to know that housing can only be built in the vicinity of the marketplace. The marketplace is one of your first buildings that you always start with. It distributes goods in the area of this blue circle. You always start out with a builder's cabin, which just provides jobs for builders, and a storage yard. Nothing special. The first houses I like to put together pretty closely, but if you really want to think ahead, already keep in mind that houses should have their own vicinity to services. So we're going to build our settlement with roughly 3 categories or 3 districts. That's housing, services, and production. Housing and services will be pretty much intermingled, and production will be most likely not so much in the vicinity of housing. You can of course build that up to your own liking, but that's my personal favorite go-to thing. So as you can see, there's a front side to the house. Pressing R will rotate it, and the yellow arrows here depict where the people will leave and enter the house. So we're going to slap down a couple of them, like let's start out with the 7 and leave some room in between. And now let's press the space button, release the pause, and up here there's the speed. And here we go. So what's happening now is our people here start working, and you might notice that everybody is working here, but we only got 3 builders. That's because everybody who's not working right now in a building or in a job will be a temporary worker. Temporary workers just do all the odd jobs that need to be done by the time. So every house you see needs timber, stone, and iron ore. That's why I said these things here are so important. Just to make sure that we have enough resources, we're going to collect some by hand. Here you can go into this menu and can either harvest trees, stones, and iron, or plants manually. We're going to select a couple of trees here, drag and drop that, and a couple of stones and iron here to drag and drop that as well. So just to make sure that we're not going to run out of building material. And bit by bit, we'll see how these buildings get completed. And as you see here, our stone stockpiles, they are pretty happy about that replenishment here. Ore is the same. Now, here's a little bit of a animal herd. There's also plants growing here and there, as you can see. That's quite the abundance of items, and that's all stuff that you can and will collect. And we already see that one of our people has an injury, ankle sprain, slower movement. So here's a settler's life, you know. Okay, so buildings get completed. Little by little, these homelessness icons go away. Having a home is not only providing your people with an opportunity to stay safe and making them happier, it's also a way of making sure that they won't freeze during winter, and also a way to make sure that they will have children and provide you new workforce, and at the end keep your settlement growing, because getting new people into town is quite a tricky thing in this game. Okay, so as you see here, still homelessness is an issue. Bit by bit, we're getting the stuff done here. Okay, so now we got the housing issue out of the way. What's next? The next thing is food and drink. You have to get water going in this game, and that's the point where I like to start, because you see we have way more food to start with, and only a low amount of water. To provide water, we're going to get ourselves a well as soon as I find it. Here in the resources tab is a big well. There's also a small well, but I personally would always recommend you to have a big well at the beginning, because you will definitely need the amount of water a big well can provide. A small well will not give you enough water for a bustling settlement core. I'll put that not too far away from the houses here, and I'll leave that on for now. But how can we provide food for us? There are several ways, and there's a lot of things how you can go. So let's first start out with agriculture. Agriculture goes with standard fields or fields. I'll explain that in a sec. Orchards or pastures. So standard fields have a 8-on-8 size, and this menu here gives you an opportunity to customize the size of your field. But if you want to make it easy, just pick a standard field and plop it down somewhere. So we're going to go towards... Well, I don't want to stress out these nodes at this point. We're just going to use a standard field. At the beginning, don't run too hard towards these spots unless you've settled right next to them. There's no need to over-optimize. I'm going to put down the standard field on the opposite side here to make sure that this will be pretty much the town core, and this is where we're going to produce our stuff. I really like to change these things, or separate them. So here we go. We can here now choose what kind of stuff is going to be produced, and we're going to produce pumpkins. Seeds have to be acquired in this game via trading or via gathering, and that's the next thing here. There's a gathering station. Gatherers search an area for wild vegetables and agaves. They will need an environment where there's a lot of mature trees, and you should never ever get rid of the trees around your gatherer's place. So place them wisely. Keep in mind that you don't want to remove those trees, and go for something like that. Because this building grows extremely more efficient if it's surrounded by as many mature trees as possible. Alright, and here goes the standard building procedure. You see, every building needs stone and iron and timber. Therefore, it's really important to provide a good stockpile of these early on. Okay, so with agriculture and gathering, you can satisfy the early needs of your town quite okay. The next thing that you really should rush as early as possible is a hunting cabin. A hunting cabin works across the entire map and will provide food for your place, but not only food, they also have a chance of catching an animal cub. And when that happens, you can use them here inside pastures. Basically, every captured animal and every collected seed can afterwards be used in fields and orchards in this game. Early on, you're quite limited with your methods. The further you play the game, the more options you get. The next thing which is really important is the logging camp in combination with the chopping house. The logging camp provides wood for your settlement. Sadly, right now we can't really see the radii of other buildings. Goes without saying, don't put the logging camp too close to the gatherer's spot, because that will be not synergistic. We're going to put the logger over here, and the logger chops and replants trees at the same time. You can also put a logging camp into the vicinity of a gathering station and forbid it chopping, and just replant trees with it in case you want to create artificially an area for a gathering station. Okay, with these things, we're starting to have the necessary resources to stay alive. What's next? Chopping house is what we're going to need to provide fuel. During the winter, your people will freeze without fuel, period. That's just what you're going to need to keep them alive. So we're going to put a chopping house into the vicinity of the marketplace here. Keep in mind, your logging camp works best the more space it has around itself with just not occupied by other buildings, because, you know, there's more room for planting trees. The efficiency of these buildings, like the Gatherer and the Logger, are absolutely dependent on the area around them being free. Now, the chopping house will transform some of our timber into fuel, and now we are well off in that regard. Here we see a new crop seed has been acquired. That's what our Gatherer does from time to time. And when you click it here, we now see that we got oats and apples. So this gives us the opportunity to provide new foodstuffs for us. Huzzah! But more of that later. Right now, we don't actually need to improve our food production. Other things are way more important. The chopping house is only one of many really important things. The next important thing is to provide vital and essential services for your people. The clinic is extremely important because without the clinic, your people's illnesses will practically never disperse. Or, well, it really takes long. With the help of a clinic, your people will heal a lot faster. A church is extremely important for people's happiness, but I'd postpone that topic of happiness to the last point on our duty list. Way more important on the next spot is a tailor's workshop. Let's put that down here. And a blacksmith. Let's put the blacksmith down here, probably. Or, well, as you see, the room for your buildings is always a little bit hard to manage, and this is where you can go crazy with your planning. Okay, now we got a lot of different building jobs issued right now, so let's tell our game to collect some extra materials, some extra iron, stone, and timber. Early on, it's completely okay to start depleting your environment a little bit, because you have to build way faster early on than you will build later on. So the chopping house is another building where you need to tell what it has to do. You can produce here domestic fuel either out of timber or dried animal dung. We don't have dung yet, so let's do this. Here you can also tell the game how much of a production limit it should have. 200 is okay. I'd personally say leave it at that point. I'm going to talk about how to configure that correctly later down the road. Fuel is absolutely vital for survival of your people. You won't make it through the first winter without people dying without fuel. So there's more seeds. Perfect. Okay, so the tailor's workshop will provide clothing out of different materials. Clothing is another thing. It's practically like fuel. If you are out of clothing in winter, it's a really, really bad thing. And clothing is something that just expires after some time. It's a percentile value, and once it's down to 0, your people will be naked, and that's a bad thing. That's why you should always have a tailor's workshop early on and produce stuff for your people. And I see here that timber has grown low, but we have already issued to collect stuff. Okay, so if you want to know how to produce clothing here, you go into the raw material tab. Down here, there's textile materials. Check it out here, and you see you got to check out what kind of materials your people actually right now own. Settlement Survival has a deep variety of materials already, And here we see I can create clothing out of leather. That's something I got, so let's do this. And early on, you will have to switch a little bit through these things, because early on you will rely most likely only on the stuff that you're getting from your hunting cabin, which is providing leather and, well, whatever is in the vicinity of it. And yeah, that's how you can produce your clothing. Later down the road, when you have a sustainable income of these materials, you don't need to configure around here. You can also craft other items here in the tailor's workshop. This is how a lot of buildings in this game work like, so pretty simple. Now, the blacksmith is a similarly important person. Tools. Without tools, your people will work a lot slower. When your people start to work slower, they will produce vital goods also slower, which can lead to a spiral of death. So that's why I keep focusing into an early blacksmith as well, because the necessary materials are actually not that hard to come by. Iron tools are better than stone tools because they last longer, but it's absolutely okay to start out with stone tools. Just go for it as you see it fit. Now, with these things out of the way, what's left to do is building a church for your people and also a cemetery, because without a church, crime is going to happen, and because your people will be, like the game says, provoked to act better as long as there's religious council around you, basically. And the other thing is that your happiness also influences the well-being of your settlement. And there goes winter. Luckily, we already got the most basic necessities. We got some fuel, but you can already see here, the amounts here are pretty low. So if you want to increase the production of a certain good, you can always check out if the building can accommodate more people. As you see here, Elijah is working here, but there's also a job position available. Just to remove that thing, click here into that, and then a second person will work there. So we'll try to amp up our production of domestic fuel here a little bit, because I feel slightly unnerved by this low amount of fuel. Here also we see there's only one temporary worker left, and that means our settlement now has practically everybody who has been idle on the work, which is a good and a bad thing at once. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to click. So, but yeah, more about that in a sec. I was so lucky to find a flax seed. Flax seeds are among the most desirable things because with flax, you can create your own textiles. So now we have the most important things down. Let me check if I forgot something. Oh yeah, there's one real other important thing, and that's the distillery. Alcohol is also a extremely important good in this game. Your people will suffer from unhappiness quite quickly if they don't have alcohol. Alcohol can be early on only produced by agaves, but your gatherers will always provide these, as you can see. Another thing, never run dry on wood. Always have wood. If that's on a 0, you will suffer from all manner of shortcomings if you're not paying attention well enough. Okay, so let's check out. There's sadly no other material for extra cloves, but that's okay. Micromanaging the cloves production early on is a necessary evil. You will die without. Okay, you see, 4 of my citizens are cold, and now they're going back home and saving themselves. Not dying miserably. Okay, so the last thing that's really important to go for is the ferry. The ferry is where you're going to invite the trader to the merchant ship over here. And the merchant will provide goods or silver. But as you see here, we don't have any silver. And that brings us now to the last thing we need to go for, and that's technology. So you see with this thing here, or the T button, you go into the tech menu. Here are your development points. The further you survive, the more development points you gain. You can also build buildings to give you extra development point production. Now, the first important technologies, in my opinion, are always mining to provide you an infinite amount of iron and coal, stone pit for the stone income, and also we're going to look for another thing right now, and that's the grocery store, because the grocery store allows you to sell goods in your settlement for silver coins. So we're going to research that by clicking that button, activated, and now we see here grocery store has appeared, and now we can build one. This is one really useful thing, because without silver you won't be able to buy goods from the trader. Therefore, grocery store is a quite important post. I'll go over other important technologies real quick for you. So over here, these technologies, none of these are too important in the agricultural business. In the processing business, weaving and knitting is, well, weaving is the more appealing thing. If you have flax, that's the technology to process that stuff. I already covered mining. There's nothing more to mention there. Construction, sawmills provide planks, but they also are a more efficient way of making domestic fuel. The larger your settlements grow, this might be also go really important. In the quality of life department, I like the police stations. If you have ever problems with criminality, you can't just research them and quickly plop them down. And in the logistics area, the warehouses are also a very, very appealing technology, in my opinion, because without them, you only have access to these open warehouses. They look like that, and they are much less effective. I love to have access to real warehouses early on, because I personally don't like to relocate things once I have decided where my businesses will be, and therefore an early access to these buildings always makes me quite happy to plot them down before wasting a lot of room, because this thing is more efficient in its room usage than other buildings. And you might already notice stone is growing a little bit more scarce, and therefore building a stone pit, and so on and so forth. So trading works like that. You tell the game what you want to sell at the grocery store. You select something you have a lot of, and then you can just select it here. Tell the game how much you want to trade of it, and you can also tell your game how much of a good should be left behind. So for example, I'll sell all the peas above 200, but not much more than that. So this is how this whole thing will work out. And on the other hand, you'll have to wait for the trader here. Once the trade ship has landed, you can't just click on it and trade with the trader directly. It's very self-explanatory. There's not much to it. So, during the course of the game, you will more and more often hit the point where we are right now. There are more jobs than we got people to do it. To manage all that, there are two really good tools that I want to show you. Here in the statistics menu, there's a production overview. The productions overview tells you how much of a good has been used in the last year and produced in the last year or this year. So keeping these numbers balanced out is vital to your survival. As you can see here, you get a readout about everything, how much has been consumed and produced. This is, in my opinion, one of the most effective ways of checking out the success of your settlement. Of course, this town menu here offers a lot of useful information as well. You can also configure your workers in a larger scale, which I really appreciate, so you can remove and add these people to the jobs in a larger menu. This is mostly important when your settlement grows larger than that. And of course, there's also a stock overview. But for me, if you prefer other looks, you can. I'm pretty sure you can also get these readouts to work for you, but I personally like this one as a very good success checkout tool. And the other thing that I want to mention is I have found a lot of success in regulating my workforces. For example, now in the spring, I know that we don't need that much domestic fuel, so I'm going to remove that worker here and add it into the grocery store. And by the time, you will also notice some things like, for example, most fields can be operated by 0 people during the winter. The game sadly doesn't do that automatically for you yet, so you have to tell the game manually. But also we can now check out how much water do we produce. So water, we produced 800 units and used 300, so we can remove one of these workers and put them somewhere else. The juggling of workers between your buildings is vital for your success, because early on you will never have the necessary amount of people in your town to get all the jobs running at once, and you want to expand. You want to have different fields of expertise. So what I personally like to have are buildings that only get operated when I need them. So whenever I can remove somebody from some department, I'll enable that building again. For example, if I need stones, I'd build a stone pit somewhere, which I'll only operate as soon as I need stones. And if I don't need stones, there's no people there. Learning how to juggle your needs and get your people into the buildings where actually some work has to be done right now is extremely important, and also provides you with a challenge of finding out what's important right now and what's not. So this is also where the challenge of this game lies. There will be mistakes on your side. You can't fully avoid that, and in this game you will have to learn a lot about what you can do, when you can do, and in short, don't be afraid of failing. A couple of tips at the end. Trading is very, very powerful to fill the holes in your economy, so getting some silver coins early on is quite a good thing to recommend. Also, another recommendation over here in the settings, you can enable the guides. The guides explain a couple of things about the buildings and such, but also they give you a couple of mini quests that provide coins. It's a pretty neat way if you want to have a early access to coins, but you don't need to do that. So these are only the basics of the game. When you check out the development tree, there's lots of different things. Salt making, meat processing, milling. There's really a lot of content already in this game, even for an early access version, so there's really a lot to dig in. And since you don't grow that quickly in this game, you'll have to make decisions what you want to do, what you don't want to do. So there's also a really nice amount of depth in it. Okay, that's pretty much all you need to know. With these things in mind, oh, there's one last thing that I didn't cover. Sorry, guys. Medicine. Herbs are your early game medicine and are collected by the gatherer. Good thing that I noticed. So herbs are found in the medicine tab, and as soon as you use up more than you're producing, you have 2 ways how to deal with that. Either set up more gatherers, that's a easy way of getting there, but the other way would be to go for where's the tech? Well, there's technology for medicine production, which I don't find right now. Terribly sorry, but you get the idea. Produce your own medicine as soon as you... here, medical research. Skin disease, that's not what I'm looking for, but yeah, you get the idea. Researching medicine as soon as your needs grow bigger than that is the next step. And yeah, that sums it up. One last thing, careful about growing. If you ever grow too quickly, you can spiral into death. Keep your population under control, and sometimes it's worth keeping people homeless if you are not able to sustain the extra amount of population in your production because you have to build something first or research something first. Don't ever give in to the urge of uncontrolled growth in games like these, and everything should be fine. All right, I hope that was helpful for you. Drop your comments down below. Questions are very welcome. If you have any things that you want to add in, or if you think that I've forgotten something, I sure have. Just add it in and make this guide a more complete experience for everybody. Of course, feel free to leave a thumbs up on that video to show everybody that you enjoyed. And last but not least, check out my channel. There's daily content popping up there. Just subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated. And I also want to recommend a look into the description section down below. There's a link to my Twitch channel where I do streams almost daily. Also a link to my Discord channel where you can find like-minded and fellow gamers. And of course, there's also links which I'd love you to check out for direct support of this video project. I'd be delighted if you did. I sure don't mind if you don't. Have a nice time and enjoy gaming. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.